by Rome and the empire. It was dramatic. Sometimes our lives will have change that we don't understand, and it will be dramatic. But what helped Saul become Paul? The community around him that said, don't be afraid. It was God. We love you. We'll take care of you. We'll make sure you're fed and you're sheltered. And we will be your people from this day forward. That's a summary that I think we can understand, no matter how old or young we are at heart. Before I start, there's a song I like. I listen to a lot of contemporary Christian music. I mean, lots of stuff. And there's this song called Set Afire. And you don't have to play, Jeff. It starts off as a prayer. No place I'd rather be. There's no place I'd rather be than here in your love, here in your love. No place I'd rather be. No place I'd rather be than here in your love, here in your love. Set a fire down in my soul. I can't contain that, I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Amen. Do you want that? Amen. Today I come to you with that fire, the words of life. Today I'm telling you that at this moment, at this hour, there was someone whom I met about 2 years ago. She's a woman that used to lead ex-gay Christian groups. And then she came out. She had her own coming out in spiritual experience and literally came out. And then had to go back to all those people she had talked to before and walk that long road of healing. And today she is the ministry leader of Joshua Generation MCC in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Today she has been protesting in the streets. She has been raising the word of the all-inclusive, loving God that she came to know. And she's in the media. And she's built a church that loves Jesus. And she's doing it as a proud, open lesbian in Mississippi. Yeah. Today, the words of life are everywhere. Members of the churches of Latter-day Saints, or whom we call Mormons, they are rising up literally by the thousands. And if you don't know much about Mormon culture, they don't protest. This is not in their temperament. But they will line up to put in their resignation letter to resign from their families, from their people, to say, no, I will not be told I'm sinful, my family's sinful, and my children cannot be baptized. They will stand there and they will say, I love you, but I will not be left aside for the name of a church. And Wasatch MCC, which is now in Salt Lake City, is a place where these folks are coming together to discover, what does it mean? Tell me, what does it mean today when I lose everything that I thought was true and I stand before God, stripped down to nothing, and say, God, I love you, help me find the way. So now they're forming an inclusive Boy Scout troop. They make backpacks for the homeless, and they're discussing scriptures and faith tradition, and they use the word queer, and the walls have not yet fallen in, and we say thanks be to God. Hallelujah. Just this month, through a variety of people, we've started a conversation with an organization that used to be an ex-gay ministry. They've now converted. They're now starting groups that people can come into homes and talk and say, I'm not going to be ashamed, I'm not going to be afraid, I'm going to reconcile my spirituality, my sexuality, and they want to know, how can we form churches? How can we take this next step and stand in this place where we don't want to shame people, we don't want to change them? How do we love and how do we read the Bible again? Have any of you ever been in that space, in any of those spaces of how do I do this? And you needed somebody. I don't know where those conversations will go with anyone at any time. But what I do know, and what I think you need to hear, this is just from North America. This is not what's happening around the world. I could go on. But I want you to hear words of new life. That experience of Saul literally falling apart and starting over is happening today around the world. Something is happening. It's in places we would never suspected, with leaders we would have never chosen. But they've come forward and they're saying, how can we be part of something that gives new life? It's the kind of change that knocks you to the ground. The kind of change that you hear a voice and you have tough questions and you can't even focus. But it's the kind of change in your life that's so shocking you say, there's no way I can do this alone. Others, they will need to help you along. It's the kind of change that you lose your appetite. You can't even take care of yourself. You may even feel like a stranger to yourself. And these are the moments that we have to trust strangers. Because we don't barely know who we are anymore. It's hard to know who to trust. What's amazing about the scripture passage is that this character, Ananias, was part of the Jesus churches and said, okay, this is really funny, God. There's a guy named Saul. I know him. They just stoned someone to death, and he was the guy who said to do it. And you really want me to go see him and lay hands on him. And in my laying on of hands, you want me to pray. Right? Over this very scary person. This man was not a friend. He was beyond a stranger. He was a threat. Can you imagine that conversation? Hey, God, I have faith, but I have a brain, and I have experience. And I know you gave me my brain, and I know you know all about my experience, but I'm kind of scared at your direction. Can I bring a bunch of people, and maybe we'll do the little Peter and the sword thing or something, you know? Can I have a plan B? God, please. But what we have to remember is Saul couldn't see clearly, and he was in a state of shock. His world had changed. He went from the all-powerful Saul to the very helpless man. And now a stranger is going to lay hands on you, all-powerful Saul, and lead you and guide you into a spiritual and personal transformation. Milwaukee, I want you to hear these words of new life. Because we are in a time of change. Not just in Milwaukee, not just in Wisconsin, but you're in a time of change right here in this church. Some of you, it may not be as dramatic as it is for others. Some of you are like, nothing really big dramatic happens in my life. I don't get into all that. It's a little too much, too emotional. But there's a space inside of you that is experiencing a change in the pastor. Where are we going for the future? Who will be here to lead us, and how do we trust anybody? Because change brings that up. Most of all, there's a change in the community. Who is around us? who will support us? You know, a pastor is not just the person that stands in front of you. It's someone who helps you look deeper and look broader into who you are, internally and out in the community. You know, this moment for you all, it's not about a pastor, okay? I'm going to tell you, it's about you as individuals. What's your relationship with God? What's your relationship with the church? What's the one thing for you that in the 6 other days of the week that bring you back here on the 7th day? These are the questions. And I have to tell you, there is a change happening in Christianity. There's actually a change in religions around the world. But especially here, the role of the traditional institution of church is changing. You know this. You've seen it. MCC is not meant to be a traditional institutional church. I don't know if you ever got that note, but maybe you feel that to be true. We're a movement. We started as an uprising of a bunch of people that said, you don't want me, church? I'll go do my own thing. And my own thing, a long time ago in Milwaukee, led to the birth of this church. And there are people that are looking to find God and figure out, without all the entrapments, how to be in relationship with God. You all have an opportunity to have that door wide open. They may feel like they've been betrayed by God in the church. So it's like going to the house of Judas in some ways, to even think about going to a church. But I'm telling you that we all have a way to create space and love and community. You've already been doing it. In this time of change, your internal change and the community change, it's a really powerful moment. So today, I'll tell you something we also know. Now, this is not true everywhere, so I don't want to, big picture here. We're hearing a lot of arguments about, well, why do you have to be so this, or why do you have to be all that? These religious freedom laws are one way of talking about it. Like the majority of Christians are persecuted somewhere here in the United States. I haven't seen that persecution quite yet, but I know some of people feel that way. But I just want to say that just because Paul was converted, and just because MCC exists, and just because people come in the doors, you all know the pressure from outside to be less of who you are becomes greater. Right? There's a lot of pressure. Well, don't be so much who you are. Just be kind of who you are, but don't make me uncomfortable while you do it. Right? It's funny, isn't it? And I say, oh, I'm sorry, I've just been uncomfortable for all of my life. If I give you 5 minutes of discomfort, it's okay with me. It really is. I don't mean to be mean, but it's true. So these are those moments in our lives where we understand that our conversion and our awakenings doesn't mean everybody gets it. So we come here. We find our healing. We find our reconciliation. We find our people, right? We find our community. And then it feels really good. And then we become a little terrified of everybody else out there, knowing we were once kind of part of all that, and yet we're scared of it now. The hardest part for Paul had to be, yeah, I have a new name, everybody recognizes me. I'm going to go talk about Jesus and not think all of his buddies are going to find him in an alley and kill him. Right? Yeah, think about this. I mean, this guy went through some stuff, granted. If you read on, as we probably will later, he gets thrown in jail a lot. Some things don't go great for him. But I want to ask you a question about this community and about Milwaukee. I want to ask you something for deep inside your heart. I want to ask, Who are the people in these communities that you interact in when you're not here on Sunday? Who are the people that are part of this ongoing change? Who are the activists? Right? Who are the moms? Because these are the ones to really contend with. The moms that are going into schools and saying, if you are mean to my GLBT kid, I am going to file a federal lawsuit against you and get all of your money. Those moms are out there. Because when you mess with their kids, you got a bear on your hands, right?
That's darn right.
Who are those moms? Who are the transgender youth that are standing up in their schools and their universities? Have you met them yet? Who's the older person that finally said, I am so tired of hiding? They've been waiting for their parents to die, and they now have. And now they're going to live and love openly in any way, shape, and form they can if they need somebody to help them. Who's that couple that says, I can get married? Whoa. Huh. I can actually start a family. That's crazy. In my life, I have a 4-year-old. I'm too old for a 4-year-old. But I love him, and he has taken about 20 years off my life. What am I doing as a proud lesbian raising a 4-year-old? I smile and say, God, I love your sense of humor. Especially when he acts like me. And does this to me. But these folks want to bring their child to a church. They want to be baptized. They want a community. Or maybe there's a person that's having their own spiritual conversion. They're like, okay, I think I've got this part. I'm not as scared of the faith church thing. If I walk in the door, ... Or that person that just got bad news from their doctor. Or they got divorced and their spouse got the church. Let's just say it. Life is messy. It's real. It's messy. It's full of all sorts of change, and sometimes it knocks you to the ground. Sometimes you can't see, you can't talk, you can't even walk. Sometimes it's just, I got to get out of here. And they go somewhere else. And it's okay. But what we need are people to be with us, to bring us back to life. And during times of change, if you don't know the people and the different things I mentioned, the mama bear, the transgender youth activists, the kids that are marching in the streets and saying Black Lives Matter, let me tell you, that movement is led by queer kids. If you want to know where all the LGBT queer youth went? To the streets in the Black Lives Matter campaign. Wake up. Wake up. It looks like a pride fest when you walk in there. Pay attention, because they know injustice and they're not going to stand on the side of anybody who's going to let that happen. Meet them. Get to know them. They will transform you. They will transform all of us. What the people in the house of Judas did for Saul was amazing. What if Saul had been left out wandering the streets? What if those people with him that were his companions to go kill Christians had said, oh, this guy, he lost it. We're just going to leave him here. He lost it. Something happened. Instead, they grabbed him by the hands and picked him up and carried him and brought him to sanctuary. imagine that? What if they just left him there? Would anybody have paid attention to this guy, this evil guy? Probably not. And we wouldn't have had Paul, and we wouldn't have the Christian church the way it became in those generations after Jesus. I want you to think about it. It's Easter season. And the shock and the confusion of that experience, will we be the ones that will help bring Paul to life? Will we participate in the resurrection of another person? There is something emerging, and it's happening here in Milwaukee. It's happening in Wisconsin. It's happening in Mississippi. It's happening in Salt Lake City. It's happening in places all around the world. And this newly named Paul, at the end of that very long passage today, said something very clearly. He said about Jesus, you know, I was wrong. I was wrong. This one is the child of God. I want to offer these new words of life, and I want you to give them to people you meet that you would have never thought would be your allies in this work. I want you to tell them, you know what? I might have been wrong. This one is the child of God. Each of you heard that message. It is our message to go forward as we follow the conversion. We follow this space and these new life, this new life that amazes me every day. I would love for you all in this time of transition, this time of we don't have a pastor now, what do we do? To instead of focus who's up here, turn your focus to who's out there. And may you speak those words of life. This one, you are a child of God. And may these words be true in all of your lives. Amen.
Amen.